Why are we being flooded with Camp Lejeune ads all of a sudden? What the heck is going on with Camp Lejeune anyway, and why should you even care? Hi, I'm Dave Buckley. I'm a personal injury attorney, and I'll tell you what's going on and why you should care. Take a look at the document that I have up on the screen right now. It's the Camp Lejeune Justice Act. It's a law that went into effect on August 10th, 2022, and it allows everyone who ever lived or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987 to make a claim that they were harmed from the government exposing them to toxic chemicals that were on the base at that time. And by the way, everyone who was on that base from 53 to 87 was exposed to toxic chemicals. Everyone. Were you there? Your parents? A relative? Because everyone who was on that base for more than 30 days during that time and were harmed, well, they're eligible to make a claim, whether they're still alive or not. And I want to be the one to help you make that claim. Here's why. My father was a highly decorated career Marine. He served his country honorably. He joined the Marine Corps when he was 17 years old. He went in as a private and he retired as a captain. He served in China before the fall, Korea at the Chosin Reservoir, and Da Nang, Vietnam in '68. Always proud, always faithful, Semper Fi, hoorah. But it turns out the biggest threat to his family, it wasn't the spread of communism. The biggest threat to his family were the lies and the arrogance and the indifference of his United States Marine Corps when it failed to step up and take responsibility for the grievous harm it caused to its own. More than 1 million people who lived and worked at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, the Marine Corps' largest base on the East Coast, well, they were exposed to contaminated groundwater, of which the Marine Corps was aware but didn't do anything about. For more than 30 years, it allowed its residents and employees to drink and wash in the poison coming out of nearly every tap on the base. And as a result of being exposed to groundwater contaminants at levels of up to 3,400 times higher than what is considered safe, chemicals such as benzene and trichloroethylene and toluene from the waste of dry cleaning plants and the waste from gun ranges and leaking fuel storage tanks and God knows whatever else they just carelessly dumped into the ground, over 1 million people suffered permanent physiological and neuropsychological harm. Miscarriages at rates higher than normal. Infant mortality at rates higher than normal. Childhood cancer at rates higher than normal. Adult cancer at rates higher than normal. Learning disabilities at rates higher than normal. Birth defects at rates higher than normal. All of this suffering, this avoidable tragedy, it happened because of an institution too narcissistic to take responsibility, too proud to admit it was wrong, too indifferent to admit its negligence. The arrogance of thinking it was beyond being held accountable and failing to take action to fix the problem when it became known may have caused as many casualties as any war the Marine Corps ever fought. People suffered. Mothers and women who wanted to be mothers grieved and wept and blamed themselves when they couldn't carry their fetus to term, or when their child died shortly after birth, or developed child-onset cancer, or their child was born with birth defects that would affect that child for the rest of its life. Fathers suffered. Men who were trained in battle, trained for the worst that man could inflict on each other, openly cried when they were left helpless to protect their own families inflicted by what at the time just seemed to be random bad luck. Husbands widowed, wives widowed, children buried. The children who survived physically and emotionally scarred for life. My parents were stationed at Camp Lejeune twice, once in the late 1950s and again in the mid-60s. They were young, kids themselves and looking forward to starting a family. But little did they know that in a few short years, my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, and I, we'd all be affected by the groundwater contamination at Camp Lejeune. My mother suffered a miscarriage on base. My father died of cancer. My siblings, they have their struggles, and I have mine. Not one of us were left untouched. Now, we can all very easily say, why me? Why did I have a miscarriage? Why did I get cancer? Why do I have birth defects? But the funny thing is, we never saw ourselves as victims. We never bought into that mentality. We were the sons and daughters of a Marine, after all. If your father's a Marine, you're a Marine. It's a life you're born into. And we remained optimistic in the face of whatever life threw at us. Tragic optimists, that's us. But then, in the mid-1980s, it was finally made public that the groundwater at Lejeune was contaminated. And that's when it all started to make sense for my family and me and the 1 million+ other people suffering in silence and dealing with their own perceived string of bad luck. Common to most big institutions when their wrongdoing is exposed, the United States Marine Corps denied causing any harm and refused, absolutely refused, to be held accountable. It was only after the mounting pressure of 1 million raised voices demanding an investigation that Congress finally stepped in and questioned the Corps as to why this was allowed to happen and wanted answers and a resolution. After years of delaying and denying and releasing questionable scientific studies, a bill was signed into law by President Obama where a limited number of people having certain medical conditions specified on a short list who think they might have a claim could make a claim against the United States Marine Corps, but it was ultimately up to the Corps to decide if a claim had merit. Through that law, a little more than 100 people had been able to make a successful claim against the Marines for the poisoning of over 1 million men, women, and children. 1 million people. Just think of that, all the consequences that resulted in drinking and bathing in contaminated water, the exponential number of lives affected by the Marine Corps' ignorance, negligence, and arrogance, and only less than a fraction of 1% of the people harmed ever received justice. And that's not being held accountable. Recognizing that justice was not being served to those affected by the toxic exposure with the laws in effect at that time, Congress passed the Camp Lejeune Justice Act of 2022. This law, the law I put up a few minutes ago, it removes the obstacles that previous laws put in place and allows anyone who thinks they've been harmed by the water at Camp Lejeune, they can file a claim for money damages. But there's a few catches. It's not as simple as filling out a form. You must file a lawsuit, and it must be filed within 2 years of the laws going into effect. And with one exception, that means August 10th, 2024. Therefore, you must act quickly. Now, you might be skeptical. I know, I get it. In the past, you might have gotten random notices in the mail that you're a member of some class action lawsuit because something you bought was defective and a lawsuit was filed for millions and millions of dollars, and you may be the lucky recipient of some of that money. But you never received anything, or if you did, it was like for $7 and a coupon you'll never use. Therefore, you don't have much faith when hearing about cases you might have an interest in, like Camp Lejeune. But this time, it's different. I promise you, it's different. Here's why. Camp Lejeune is not a class action lawsuit. And because it's not a class action lawsuit, you will not be among the masses of claimants while one lawsuit plays out until there's one resolution and everyone in the class gets a tiny piece of the same pie. No, rather, with Camp Lejeune, your very own individual lawsuit will be filed on your behalf or on behalf of a loved one, whether that loved one is still alive or not. Therefore, your case or your loved one's case will be tried on the merits and a value assigned for the harm caused. And what's more, it won't cost you anything to start a claim, not 1 penny. And why is that? It's because the law was written to make Camp Lejeune be treated just like any other personal injury case that goes to trial. It's taken on by an attorney on a contingency fee basis. That means the cost of the suit and the lawyer, they only get paid contingent on when you or if you get paid. The settlement funds pay for everything when the case is over, and you get the net remainder. Marine Corps families are a special breed. We are a community connected by tradition. We correct anyone who says ex-Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Every single one of us can sing the Marine Corps hymn. We celebrated the Marine Corps birthday like any other holiday on the calendar. And whenever we saw our father in his dress blues, oh man, we just absorbed that pride, didn't we? And that's why this hurts. How could we have been betrayed like this by our Marine Corps? To be told for decades that nothing was wrong. To have been told that there was nothing wrong with the water and that taste, the smell, well, we were told that was just a natural phenomenon of the North Carolina groundwater system. And to be ordered to retell that story to anyone who asked what was wrong with the water. We, as Camp Lejeune alumni, the Marines, the husbands and wives of Marines, the parents of Marines, and like me, the children of Marines, we're all in this together. And we need to recognize that we have finally been given the opportunity to obtain the justice that for so long has been denied to us. And that now is the time to act and hold the Corps accountable for the grievous and unforgivable harm that they cast upon generations of Marine Corps families like yours and mine. We are one family. We have a special bond. The Marine Corps is woven into the fabric of our lives. And what hurts one of us hurts all of us. But we will not allow ourselves to be hurt again by not acting now when the opportunity has finally arisen. Therefore, I am begging you, that you do what's right for your father, your mother, your siblings, and for yourself. And act now. Why now? Because there's not much time. There's only a very short window of opportunity to file a claim under the Camp Lejeune Act of 2022. And that's no later than August 10th, 2024. The clock is ticking. Time is of the essence. There will not be another opportunity. Stand up, do your due diligence, and make that claim. Otherwise, because if you don't, the pain and suffering of your family and you will have gone unaccounted for, unnoticed, and forgotten. And all the hard work of everyone who made the Camp Lejeune Justice Act a reality on all our behalves will turn out to be nothing more than a hollow victory. I dare say that it's your duty to make a claim. And I'm dead serious about that. I was conceived at Lejeune in 1959 and born in 1960 with birth defects. I spent days at a time alone in naval hospitals having operations every year from infancy through my 20s. I couldn't speak well enough to be understood until I was 6 years old. I missed critical early learning development lessons because I couldn't hear. I missed a lot of school. And because of that, I didn't make friends until I was 8. Shout out to my best friend Pete, though. He's still my buddy to this day. And now, 62 years later, I'm being told that I'm going deaf in my right ear and that there's nothing I can do about it, and that it's related to my birth defects. Hoorah. But I want to be very clear about something. You can't wish upon the past for something different. And all we have is what we've been given. I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for the people in my life. I'm grateful for the people I love, and I'm grateful for the people that love me. I'm grateful for my ability to walk and talk and think and act independently. I'm grateful for today. Because you can't stop what's coming, I'm hopeful for tomorrow. And what I'm telling you right now, this very personal story, is something I think about nearly every single day. But I never talk about it. Never. Not until now. Because I must. I'm obligated. And as I said, the time is now. I have to listen to my own advice and stand up, be counted, be heard. And so do you. There are literally billions of dollars at stake. And to be eligible to file a claim, you must answer yes to the following 4 questions. 1, were you or the person you're inquiring about at Camp Lejeune or the Marine Corps Air Station New River in Jacksonville, North Carolina? 2, was it between the years of 1953 and 1987? 3, was it for more than a cumulative of 30 days? 30 days either consecutively or non-consecutively. Doesn't need to be back-to-back. 4, were you or a family member diagnosed with cancer, birth defects, miscarriage, infertility, neurological conditions, psychological conditions, or any medical condition after living or working on base? If you answered yes to all 4 questions, then you or the person you're answering for may be eligible to file a claim. And while that's a good start, there's 5 more requirements to meet to file a claim. 1, you must provide documentation that you or a loved one were on base for at least 30 days between 53 and 87. And this can be done by requesting military records from the government. 2, you must provide documentation of the illness, and this can be done by providing medical records. 3, you must establish a connection that the medical condition and financial harm being complained of is either sufficient to conclude that a causal relationship exists or sufficient to conclude that a causal relationship is at least as likely as not. This can be done through evidence such as recognized studies, medical records, and other forms of documentation. 4, you must file a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of North Carolina. The Camp Lejeune Justice Act only allows claims to be filed in this federal court. And 5, the statute of limitations is 2 years from the date of the law's enactment, which means that a lawsuit must be filed by no later than August 10th, 2024. But there is an exception. Everyone who believes they have a claim and can meet the preconditions of making a claim must first file an administrative application for compensation before filing suit. If that application is allowed, then an offer of settlement may be made by the government. And if the application is denied, then you have the right to bring a lawsuit against the government within 180 days of the date of the administrative denial, even if the 2-year statute of limitations has expired. Now, I know all this sounds like legal mumbo-jumbo, but this is why you hire a lawyer. These are the things that your attorney gets squared away for you. And therefore, once your claim is made, just sit back, relax, and let it be taken care of for you. I, Dave Buckley, want to represent you for your Camp Lejeune claim. But why choose me? You're being bombarded with ads from so many other attorneys. How do you even decide? Here's how. I've been a practicing attorney for 30 years. And as an attorney, I want to make a difference in the lives around me. I work to help others in their time of need, and I'm committed to my clients at a deep level. My clients are the purpose of my firm. My clients are the reason why I do this. It's all about them. I've handled nearly every type of personal injury case there is. And as you've heard me say, this is personal. But why does that make me the right fit for your Camp Lejeune case? Because I'm pissed off, that's why. Pissed off that I have to tell my story, one that I never tell anyone. Pissed off that my privacy is being exposed for the world to see and hear and judge. Pissed off at the Marines for the harm that it caused my family and me. Pissed off at the decades-long denials that anything was wrong and failing to step up and recognize and account for what was taken from my family and me. And pissed off for everyone else that went through and will go through the same thing as my family and me, because my story isn't the only story. Therefore, I have an axe to grind. When you hire me to represent you to make your claim against the Marines that caused you or your family member harm, I know your story. I know your pain. I know the years-long struggles. I know the harm they caused firsthand, and I know what to do to hold them accountable. That's my mission. That's my purpose in life. I was quite literally born for this case. Why me? That's why. Why choose me as your lawyer? Because I have a chip on my shoulder. That's why. I'm mad as hell that my mother and my father and my sisters and my brother were all individually harmed, that I was harmed, that 1 million people in this country and more do not get the satisfaction of the United States Marine Corps being held accountable to the very people that make it great. We didn't even get an apology. Instead, we were told to keep our mouths shut and fall in line. I'll make those who are responsible for your injuries, your loss, your pain and suffering to be held accountable. And they will pay for their arrogance, and they will pay for their indifference, and they will pay for their negligence. That's what separates me from the other attorneys who do this. That's what makes the difference. That's why you choose me. Your wins are my wins. That's the difference. You need a lawyer, you need me, and you need me now, because time is running out. I'm Dave Buckley. I'm a personal injury attorney, and I want to represent you for your Camp Lejeune claim. My contact information is below. Thanks for listening. Semper Fi.